The 19th East Africa Business Network Trade and Investment Conference is brought to you by Kurunzi News in association with the following partners.
Still coming to you from the sidelines of the EABN 2024, where we are talking about different opportunities that are available. We are talking to exhibitors here and what they do and what they are doing here in this conference and why it is important. And at this point in time, I'm talking to Mercy Wandia. Mercy is a realtor based here in Dallas. So Mercy, I mean, we first of all, it's good that we are grateful that you've taken your time to be here to talk to us. Let's begin with what you do and what your business model is, and tell us why it is important that we have, events or conventions like what we are having here today.
Okay. My name is Mercy Wandia, just like you said, and my goal is to make sure that the immigrants in Texas can be able to acquire properties here in the U.S. So I've been a realtor for a while. I've been in the real estate industry for over 15 years, almost going to 20. And an investor as well here. And I absolutely love to see our people getting into real estate, and especially buying a piece of land, buying properties. And something like this, EABN has really come together to bring us together to learn about each other, to kind of network on how we can be able to invest not only back home, but even in the United States of America.
So I spoke to Benson earlier, the founding president of EABN, and he told me EABN is a marketplace.
Yes.
So in terms of market, and one of the critical questions that people ask is, how easy is it for somebody, an immigrant, to come into this country and still invest? And of course, I ask that in mind that our people have this high affinity for land.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the experience that we have from back home isn't the very best because of how people have lost money. So tell us about the American experience in terms of buying even pieces of land, because not many people talk about owning land in America.
And believe me, it is possible. I'm as well getting a lot of phone calls from back home, investors trying to invest here in the U.S. And yes, it is possible. Now, for those people who come over here, and even for the foreigners, it is not hard. As long as you have the cash money as a foreigner, you can own a piece of real estate here. Now, for those people who live here, if they do not have a full, cash money to buy outright, then of course they have to go through the financing process.
Okay.
Now, financing process is easy. It's just a matter of having a job or a verifiable job, showing your pay stubs, having good credit. And credit score is all about how you've been able to borrow money in the past and how well you've paid that on time. And so they give you a score on that. That's what the credit score is all about. And of course, showing that you can be able to repay back. Some of the programs will ask you for some down payments, a little percentage of it. Some of them, they will not even ask you anything. And it is possible to really own properties here and pay over time. So, and that's what I'm all about. I've been here for a while in Texas since 2006. And I trying really so much to help our people be able to own here, because many people have come here, even though this is not where they're going to retire, they have children here. Those children are Americans. So what I always tell them is, even when you're investing back home, because that's where you're planning on retiring, you really have to think about your children and retire here. My slogan is, live the dream and leave a legacy. That way, at least you can live to buy. I mean, you can live in the homes that you want to buy. You can live in $1 million, properties. But at the same time, what is it that you're living here for the kids?
And Mercy, let's be honest with each other. And I've heard this story, and you probably know it better than I do, that a lot of the people talk about retiring back home. But 10, 15, 20 years, they keep talking about next year. One-way ticket, sitarudi.
Yep.
So they keep buying properties at home that they eventually lose money on. And yet they are in this country, they are in America. So what is it what is the starting point in terms of, at what point do you come into play, and what is the process of engaging you as a realtor so that, people get to know that, it is possible to do? Because let me be honest with you, I'm a believer that if you come into this country, a lot of the people spend their most productive years of life in this country.
Yep.
They live in apartments, and they are building bungalows and big houses back at home, where they spend 2 days or 1 week in a year, or maybe once in 3 years,
and at times nothing.
So what is the value? What is your message to those people who live here, especially? Those are the people that we are looking at. What is your message to them?
The people who live here, believe me, I've met several people where they are like, you know what, I'm only giving myself 5 years to live here. So no, I don't want to buy, because I don't want to tie myself for 20 or even 30 years. And I always tell them, it's not really tying down, because the moment you take a home, and even if you're buying on a mortgage and they give you 30 years, that does not necessarily mean that you have to keep the mortgage for 30 years. It does not mean that you have to stay here until you pay it off. You can sell it. And I'm here to help those people invest, even if it's in 3 years or in 5 years, to where you can buy and sell and then go back home and retire. But one of the things that some of these people forget is that, and I can tell you, I've met some where they say 3 to 5 years they're going home. 10 years later, they're still here. 10 years later, they're still paying for that apartment, right? And I tell them, if only you had bought maybe a year or two when you got here. Of course, most of us don't have that information. But now that they know, if only they can be able to invest during that time and sell. And I've helped a few people do that, where they sell, they bought and then they sell and they make like $200,000, $300,000. And that is enough money to really take back home and invest and do something with it. Now, when it comes to retiring, right? Some of them are kind of like here and back home. You talk to them and they're not sure exactly where they want to be. But after talking to several, one of the things that they normally say is that I don't want to be 80 or 90 years and be taken to a group home or be taken to a retirement facility. And I think we do have a negative notation when it comes to that, without really thinking about, even when you get home, somebody is still going to take care of you.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's either your kids, you're going to put a strain on your kids to really take care of you, or you're going to put a strain on somebody else. So either way, if you need help, you will need help regardless where you are, because you are getting old, right? Yeah. So I think one of the things that I can say is that people need to start really digging deep within themselves to figure out, where is it that I want to retire? And then come up with a game plan for it. Plan your life.
So how do I start talking to Mercy? At what point?
At what
and
point?
How does that conversation begin and proceed?
Okay, so most of the time I get a phone call and people are like, hey, I'm tired of throwing money away in an apartment, right? I've been renting for, 3 or 5 or 10 years and, and I'm planning on, let's say, retiring sometime in the future. Where do we get started? Can I even afford it? And so I do talk to people one-on-one. We can either meet via Zoom, we can meet physically, and we go through I don't necessarily go through their finances. I don't even take their pay stubs, their tax returns. I don't want to know how much you're making. For me, it's just to walk you through the process from beginning to end. I work with a lot of lenders, and I have Faith, who I'm sure you've talked to before, that I work with very closely. And I refer them to either banks or any lenders to get pre-approved based on the questions that I ask. So the initial questions that I normally ask is, do you have a job? Is it verifiable, right? Do you file your taxes? Whether you owe taxes or not, that does not necessarily mean you're not going to qualify, but at least you have to be filing your taxes.
Absolutely.
Right? And then how is your credit score? That does not necessarily mean that you must have an excellent credit. Even if the credit is not that good, we still can get you qualified It just depends how much money are you going to put down and what kind of interest rate are you going to get, right? So we start from there. You get pre-approved, and by pre-approved, it's just the bank going through those things and telling you, hey, based on your income, your credit, and the interest rate, this is how much you qualify. Then when they come to me and give me that letter and tell me, hey, I'm qualified for X amount, now it's up to me to figure out.
Go to the market
to go to the market, find that particular property in the locations that you want that fits your budget. So most of the time, many people will get approved for much higher. But the way I do it is I try to get on the calculator to work with your budget. So if you tell me your budget is, let's say, $3,000 on a monthly basis, that's how much you want to set aside. We do not have to absolutely go up to the loan amount that you're approved for. We only go up to what you can be able to afford. Because one of the things that I don't like to see is where people buy a home and then you become a slave of that home. You feel like you want to, work 2-3 extra shifts just to pay for the mortgage. No, I want you to be able to enjoy what you bought. I want you to be able to enjoy the time with your family and at the same time to do the fun stuff that you've always been doing, or even a little bit more. If you like vacations, continue doing those vacations. Buy something that you can afford. One of the things about our people, what I've noticed is that some of them will compare themselves with so-and-so. My friend bought a nice 2-story home, very high, very good house, and I want one just like that. While people could even be in the same, profession, but your goals and the other person's goals are totally different. I always tell people to start where you can afford. Don't even think about somebody else. Think about just you, your spouse, and your family. What makes you happy? Let's start somewhere. At least not throwing money away to an apartment. Let's start somewhere, and then we can definitely upgrade with time. Because you can buy an apartment right now. It doesn't have to be, a big, expensive house. And then after some few years, you sell, get some equity, take some of that equity, invest elsewhere. Take some of that equity and let's put it on another house. Upgrade, right? After a few years, you can upgrade to the third. As a matter of fact, this morning I received a call from one of my past clients. They've only been there for almost 2 years now. They are ready to upgrade. They've realized some things that are not in that house that they want, now that their kids are a little bit bigger. So I told them, you know what? We are going to consult sometime next week. Let's take the money from there, put it on another better house in the location that you want. So that happens all the time. And most of these loans, mortgages that they get, there's no prepayment penalty. So why not pay one off? Of course, buy another mortgage, we sell, we pay that off and move on to the next.
Absolutely. And that is why, like Benson said, this is a marketplace, and Mercy, this is information that you can only get by being here. So Mercy, your last word as we end this interview. What is your message, especially? I know you've talked about advising people on, being able to scratch themselves as far as they can reach.
Yes.
But what is your message to the people out there? And one thing I'm always asking people, especially when I talk to people who come from Kenya, like myself, or Africa for that matter, is, how does the American experience help us to inspire some of the people that, are watching and they're thinking, those people wanaongea hivyo because of America? What is your message to them? And how can we, use the experience that we have from here to also inspire people into doing something, even when it doesn't look like they have reason to wake up the next day and try something?
Let me answer the first question that you asked. What I would tell the people who are here in diaspora is, number one, invest in properties, invest in real estate. Whether it is going to be properties, it's going to be land, or it is going to be multi-families. You can definitely be able to get into very many properties and you can be able to qualify to be able to move up. So we have kids here. So whenever we have kids, it's always good to think about them. My slogan is live your dream. Live the dream and live a legacy, right? Because we want to be able to get into a position to where we have invested enough. And believe me, savings from the jobs that we do, just saving, it's not enough. We really have to invest in a way that we are going to be able to live something for not only our children, but the great-grandchildren that we are going to live in this country. And at the same time, what can I tell the people who are back home and thinking about diaspora and thinking that we made it is it's always good to look for your passion, because the moment you have a passion and you're doing what you absolutely love to do, the money will always come. The money will always come later.
Wow. The money will always come. Conversations we are bringing you from the sidelines of the East African Business Network Investment Conference 2024 here in Dallas, Texas. We continue with the conversations here on Kurunzi News and Legion Media. See you again soon on the other side, the next person we talk to.